Hi, I'm Nicholas Osada, and this is Alan Balcazar of the Titan News and Production team. With me today is Mr. Paconne. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
And today we're going to be talking about the effects of ChatGPT on San Marino High School. How do you think that ChatGPT being introduced, believe November, and it's been kind of progressing, how do you think that's kind of changed what teachers think about teaching online and with computers?
Oh my gosh. The first question right off the bat, speaking about what other teachers think about all this, I have no clue. I really have no clue. I haven't had a chance to talk about this with but a small handful of teachers on the campus. I've certainly experimented a lot with it, used it a lot, been reading a lot about it since it launched in November. The only thing I can say for sure is there's some pretty good research out there that says in the months December, January, more and more teachers are warming up to ChatGPT, using it. I think the numbers are now somewhere in the 60%, 65% range. But that's about all I can say as far as what teachers think.
And more importantly, what do you think about it? Do you think there could be uses in class? I know Alan and I are students in your history class, and we've seen you implement it in different kinds of ways. What do you think about using it?
Well, I definitely think that it has great potential to affect education in a positive way. But that said, just today, just a couple of hours ago, New York Times ran this story about one of the guys, sort of the brainchild behind AI over at Google. He quit, and he's gone from this guy who is singing the praise of ChatGPT, one of the early movers and shakers, I should say, as far as AI is concerned, not chat, but AI is concerned, to now really warning everybody about the potential dangers. So, this is an interesting development. I clearly see great benefit, but bright people out there are saying, "Hey, let's be very careful about this. There can be a downside. How this is all going to shake out, I don't know."
I think everyone is starting to realize, or at least a certain number of people are starting to realize how much of an impact ChatGPT or just AI in general is going to have worldwide. Talking about all types of people around the world are going to be using AI to not only, I feel, for teaching purposes, but for recreational purposes, research. What do you think about the use of ChatGPT currently? Do you think it can? Do you think ChatGPT can only be used for teaching, or do you think it can also have other?
Oh no,
Purposes.
it can be used for teaching, and it can be used for learning. So when people warn against the downside of ChatGPT or AI, I don't see that as I'm explaining. I mean, I haven't had the bot say anything outrageous to me, and those who argue that it's plagued with making errors, I haven't seen that at all. Is it perfect? No, but in terms of the information that it gives me for the purposes of what I do, teaching history, I'd say it's somewhere in the realm of 95% accurate. It does seem to struggle for some odd reason when it comes to certain things, like whenever I ask it to talk about the history of the Chinese in America, it's always going to work into it Fred Korematsu, or the story of Fred Korematsu, who was Japanese. I'm not sure why it does that. And then also when I ask it to arrange dates in a certain order, it somehow can't seem to do that. Creating a chronology doesn't seem to work particularly well. But aside from that, and I've produced endless amounts of resources with chat. It rarely, if ever, makes an error, a factual error.
I think what it is currently is that it's such an early stage of development that it's gonna be like one of this, like the car back in the 1900s, when it was first started to come out and had a lot of errors. It was hard to use, but nowadays we use it so often and so easily that, I mean, it's nothing like it was before. So I feel like as the longer ChatGPT is out there, it's gonna be, the more it evolves and the less error it's gonna be eventually.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope history will be able to look back on all this and say that this was really nothing more in terms of history than the equivalent of when the Model T was invented.
Exactly.
I mean, there was a whole America full of horse and buggy owners, horse and buggy drivers. They cherished their horse and buggy. They thought that it was the most magnificent thing. They didn't have to walk around on foot. All of a sudden, this Model T comes off the assembly line, and you could see the potential of good and positive, but clearly, way back then, just as we know today, the car, the Model T, car that followed, had a lot of negative to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not so sure it's on the same level as negative as some of these guys are talking about. I mean, some of their doomsdaying talk is about AI basically controlling the human race. Okay, and I just don't know. But as of right now, I plan to use it a lot next year. It will significantly change, and I already know how that's going to work. How I teach AP U.S. history and regular U.S. history.
Right.
I believe the tool is so powerful that in my classes, and I would guess in most others, you can get more students to learn what they need to learn in less time. I believe that. I believe it's that powerful. And so then the interesting question becomes, well, if we're not going to shorten the school day or shorten the class period, if you have all this extra time left over, what are you going to do with that time? And that's where I think it gets really, really exciting. I've shown you guys, some of that,
no,
right? Yeah.
you're totally right about
we've
that.
We've seen you taking, because as I said, we've been in your class, we've seen you from the beginning of the year, you've taught one way,
Yeah.
the slides,
Yeah.
the notes, and now it's a completely different
Isn't
thing.
it? Yeah.
And actually, I find it interesting that the first time I had ever seen ChatGPT was actually in your class. I wasn't using it, but I remember it was before winter break, and someone brought it up. Oh, there's this new thing. Alan was with me. There's this new thing that can like write essays, and I was like, oh well, I've seen like videos about it. I'm sure that it's not that great. And then I give it a little prompt, and it writes this like whole essay. And I remember just thinking like, this is like unreal that it can write something that looks this good, looks like it's properly formatted. And even then, I knew that like, even though now I think that it's going to take a lot of time to go forward, I could see now that was kind of like a step forward. And I think similar to the automobile that you brought up, I feel like when the Model T first came out, it was a revolution and cars became general use, but it wasn't until like 100 years later that you look back now and you see the effect of what the car has done on just the entire world and society in itself. Everything works a lot differently, and I feel like AI may take a similar thing to that, where we may not see very large change, but we might see, like, because you can even talk about how AI will be implemented into jobs, and when Alan and I filmed a board meeting for PFA at the Crowell Library, and the school here is talking about using AI cameras to actually look at students and somehow be able to tell if they have like a weapon or something to prevent violence at schools. And that's just another implementation of AI. ChatGPT is just like one thing, but
which I think is very fascinating because it's not only ChatGPT. There's also Class Companion. There's so many other bots, AIs, resources that people are able to use nowadays. And I'm also thinking about the change, the shift into being only able to use Google to do essays and books and talking to people, to completely just having to type a prompt for a bot and just it giving you a whole prompt essay. It kind of reminds me of how my dad used to tell me how my grandpa, who used to live in the countryside back in Mexico, saw the shift of people using horses to do their daily labors, and how he was able to see the first car drop into town, and and seeing how everyone was confused about it. They were like, what is this? Like, this is part of the devil. This is the devil's work, right? So I just think so I think it's very fascinating how in a couple of years we may be able to see an absolute shift in the way how we do things daily, how we do our daily tasks as a school, and how we learn we learn whatever the teachers are able to produce.
The biggest shift that I think we're looking at least in the very near future, is the bot, whether we're talking AI or whatever,
Yeah.
it can produce the product. So, in school, you guys have seen this. We want you to do something. You're going to learn something. You're going to bubble in some multiple choice. You're going to write some essays. But the essay writing, it's a product. Essay writing, poem, short story, fiction letter, a report. It's endless. We're going to have you do something with your learning. Well, the bot can now do all of that. I mean, you've seen it, right? It can
Oh yeah.
a parody of a
See the
song,
best of it.
right? It can sound like Shakespeare, and so if that's true, then what are we going to do next year when we want to assign work to you? You're try to tell you that you can't use the bot, and then have to get into that game of AI detection, which I've taken a close look at. I just do not believe that it's going to work for long. If at all, or at least work in a way that we expect it to work.
Mhm.
Or, so what do we do? And I think that the answer is we just have to recognize that the product is going to be a collaboration of student
Mhm.
and bot work. And we can't grade that because that's just not fair, right? It's how do we grade that? So what we have to grade and assess is your ability to either in writing or orally answer questions about the work.
Yeah.
And that was that one project that
Yeah.
I showed you, right?
The museum part where we had to present instead of just write a report on
Exactly.
it. And
I thought
feel
that was
like-
very brilliant because yeah, it's easy for a student to type an essay, turn it in. He might have done it himself, he might have not. But the most important thing is his ability to answer follow-up questions.
Exactly.
I feel like that you also implemented that in the museum exhibit
Right,
project,
right.
where, for example, our topic is the Wanton Freeway. How we were both able to produce the front page, the summary,
Mhm.
or museum exhibit, all three parts of it. But then, right when you started asking follow-up questions, that's where we started struggling.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
we didn't know our topic as we do nowadays,
Mhm.
which
And
it's very valuable.
I
for
feel
me.
like, school, we like to see school as something that's preparing us for our futures and our jobs. And I feel like in reality, jobs are more, from what I know, jobs are more focused on that. You don't just submit a report, you submit a presentation. You convince not all jobs that you sell, and you show that you know what you're talking about in reality, because like Alan said, we could write a 3-page report, but knowing everything and being passionate about a subject is what really drives you to do more work. And I feel like what you said about embracing the bot instead of kind of like keep pushing it away, because I feel like I can agree with that. If you just keep pushing it away, it's always going to come back. Give it a
Yeah.
little time, it'll always come back, and it'll be a little harder to get rid of it that
Yeah.
time.
But just keep this in mind, though. I have been cautious now. Well, first of all, I really didn't talk about it, or I didn't have. How do I want to say this? I've been so cautious that I have not yet asked you guys at any point in time to actually use it, nor have I required it. Right?
Yeah.
Of course.
It is a real interesting question. One of my colleagues here, one of the teachers here, thinks that if it's going to stay around, maybe just at the college level, but maybe it needs to be cut off at the high school level, or cut off at the middle school level, where there's a certain age, below a certain age, where it's not appropriate to use it or encourage students to use it. And so that's one reason why I have not yet said to you, hey, here's a project or here's an assignment, and I actually want you to work with. I've used it. I've shown you I've used it. I've given you resources where I've used it, and I've shown you how we could possibly do that. But I'm not yet
So sure.
gone the next step. Yeah.
Well, I'm also sure that you also want everyone's best interest and to get the most the benefits out of
Yeah.
the AI itself, because yeah, people talk a lot about the downsides of the AI and how it could say affect a person's, a student's learning, but no one. I feel like there's not enough talk about the benefits of it, especially currently without
Interesting.
or at least I've seen a lot of students, teachers talk about how it's plagiarism, how it goes against the student policy, all these things that are bad for that look the AI look bad, but it's something that is revolutionary for sure. It's gonna change the way that we're gonna learn, that we're gonna teach.
Are you saying right now it seems like the focus in education is on the downside? There's not enough.
Yes.
Well,
I agree.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. The initial reaction was ban it, push it off.
Yeah.
That's the fight or flight response.
The fight or flight
people
response.
see something new, their first thought is, well,
Because
I don't
it's
like
new.
it. It's different,
Right.
and I feel like, I feel like with the whole, you look at reading articles and things like that, there is pros, but I feel like here in San Marino, from what I've been exposed to, and I think Alan's been exposed to, it's been a mostly like kind of weary, negative kind of response. We're not sure,
Yeah.
and I think people don't know. That's a big thing. People just don't know.
Right.
People don't
And
know.
I think I think whether we like it or not, in the school level, I think AI is going to be start using for past school, for jobs. People at work are going to be like, well, if this AI can help me do the work, well, I'm just going to use the AI. Nobody's stopping me. And I feel like that's just going to get implemented into different kinds of jobs, whether a lot of people like it or not.
And not only that, but I'm sure you can, if you give it the right prompts and the right information, you can also just type a resume. And it's funny because that's something that a lot of people do for work. Like, for example, my brother's girlfriend, she has a little bit of a side hustle where she's a really good writer. She excelled all her classes in English. And that's what she does as a side hustle. She helps other people write their resumes. She helps them. They practice interviews for new jobs and she asks them, hey, what kind of job is this? So she can give them a more personalized sort of interview for them, which is something that the AI is probably going to be able to do in I don't know, a year, 2, 10, probably less than a decade.
Yeah.
Probably won't be seeing that.
One of the reasons why you may not have seen a lot of or heard a lot of talk about the positive effect of chat AI in public ed is, well, chat just as you said, it came out in November, and so like it's kind of scary to put out there that you think it has value and actually then to try to show how it has value, because it's only been out for 4 months, and we're also here at the end of the school year. Everybody's feeling tired. I know that I speak at a lot of conferences. I just spoke to the New York social studies teachers the other day, and I've got articles left and right. But every time I put that out there, I say to myself, now wait a minute, this is only 4 months in, and I can only imagine how my brain is going to continue to process, how much change I've already thought of. And then you go, okay, wait, could I be putting something out there that I'm only going to regret next month or after a summer vacation or something like that? And so I can understand the reluctance or the resistance or the lack of putting anything out there positive, because it's risky, right?
Yeah,
It's just kind of
nobody
risky.
And nobody wants anything to be held against
Held
them
against
later
them,
on,
yeah.
because you go for summer and something terrible happens, and then you come back and you're like, well, were you the person that said that this was?
And it's happened to me. I put something out very early, nothing major, but there's a critic I know, and the critic will not let go of that. That's you said it was wrong, and so okay, I've evolved, but you're right, it was wrong. So
Yeah, it's very easy to point fingers when somebody is wrong, but I feel like not enough people point fingers at the right direction when somebody is right. So this might be one of those occasions where, for example, you might have the right opinion, the right opinion about ChatGPT, and everyone else goes against that opinion. It could be one of those moments in history where it could be something revolutionary that could, as I said before, that could change our lives completely.
But as with everything, I think it just needs time.
It just needs time.
Yeah.
It needs
You
time to
can't-
develop.
You can't say it's good or you can't say bad if you can't even see what effect it has on the long term, or there's just no way to know. Like you
I
said.
will tell you, as a teacher, I've had it's been enjoyable. It's been enjoyable to I put a project in front of you where I've given you what ChatGPT would have done with it, and then not have you do it, but then show you, hey, Chat would have done this, and then ask you those follow-up questions and see where you go with that, and how your thinking progresses, and then how you want to research some more, the energy with all of that, like with the Vietnam project.
And I was also going to mention that you've talked about this before in our class, how the AI lacks what did you call it? It was emotion,
Yeah,
human
it does,
emotion,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Pizzazz.
pizzazz.
Yeah.
Because you see, you ask it to write something, and then you read it, and I think you said this. It's not wrong, but it's also not entirely right. It's kind of just like you could tell it just skimmed the internet, gave you
Yeah.
like the base, and if you ask it a question, you're kind of still left with more questions afterwards because it just kind of gave you like a little overview.
Which is then a nice opportunity for you guys to put yourself into
more,
the
yeah.
work. Rework it in your own voice, in your own wording, and see where it takes us. In that regard, it becomes a first draft
Useful.
builder or
Yeah.
something like
And
that.
that's
Yeah.
like the class companion, kind of like you write an answer and it doesn't just tell you you're wrong. It gives you, oh, you were halfway right, you were close, but you should. And I really like that about class companion. That I don't remember the exact question I asked it or the answer I gave it, but it gave me a specific example of something I should research.
Mhm.
It said, oh, you were kind of right, but you should focus on this, this, and this, and you should talk about it more when you're answering. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of, now I know what to look up, now I know what to look for. I found that to be really interesting.
Do you have any friends who absolutely under no circumstances won't use it?
I don't have any personal friends, but I know
I know people.
I know
Yeah.
people, yeah.
They won't use it. They won't touch it.
Yeah, they think that it's They think it's plagiarism. They just don't think it's a right thing. It's something right to do. Which I mean, honestly, I understand exactly where they're coming from, knowing that there's not a lot out there to as how Nikki said it. There's just people just don't know too much about it. So
And on the same note, knowing people that don't use it, there's also I know Alan and I know people that only use it.
Only
That's-
use it.
an essay, okay, I'm using ChatGPT to write me a whole first draft. But we've seen it firsthand in our English class, incidents with that, and I think there's definitely just both sides. And then you have people that just don't know about it. I know my parents know nothing about it at all.
I wonder what would have happened if prior to this interview or this what we're doing here, if you had said, "Hey, ChatGPT, we're gonna ask this teacher of ours who talks all the time about this thing, 10 questions, and what do you think would be the 10 best questions?" I wonder what it would have come up with, or if I had run it through and said, "I'm about to be questioned or interviewed or whatever," and like,
what questions should I expect?
right?
Uh-huh.
What would be a really cool thing to say at the beginning? A real cool thing to say at the end? I wonder what it would have come up
had
with.
like the perfect little thing to say at the beginning
Yeah.
and the end. We had a actually ChatGPT. That's another angle that I completely forgot about. That you reminded me now. That another angle that in our media arts class, and we have to we have film projects. Write a comedy film, write something.
Yeah.
It is great for that. Write a comedy film. It could be really hard. I'm not the best writer when it comes to those things. But you could just ask ChatGPT, give it like a full length prompt, write a comedy film about this, this, and it writes a perfect little thing, and then you have a film project. And I know that our media, Mr. Basolto, hasn't told us to use it, hasn't told us not to use it, but he also hasn't said anything about it because you're just trying to produce a film to practice our filming skills.
Yeah.
And I know that is something that me and Alan have used before because we've just thought, why not see what it can write? And it's written something that's actually genuinely a good little film, so we just film it and it comes out.
And what's fun about it is that sometimes the prompts the response it gives you is not even for example, taking the example of the comedic script that we had to write one time. When you ask it to just write a comedic script, it can give the worst jokes out there, which or it can also give you just fun little puns to use on your
but mostly
little movie.
just bad jokes.
Yeah,
When it gives a
mostly
bad
just
joke,
bad jokes.
Do you say, "Hey, that was a really bad joke. Give me another joke"? Does
We
it?
haven't tried
Yeah,
that one yet.
A way that I think that I like that you use ChatGPT is that you actually sort of talk to it. When it gives you a bad response, tell it, "No, ChatGPT, this is not what I want." And which actually the AI recognizes the error that it made and sort of tries to amend it in the way that you want it, which I don't know. I just think it's powerful because it can also amend its errors.
I read an article about coding. People write code for. This guy was experimenting with ChatGPT and was asking it to write a code for something, and he knew that when writing that code, most coders make a mistake, and you ask ChatGPT to write that code, and it made the exact same
Oh,
mistake
wow.
that every coder would make.
Wow.
But then, when he told ChatGPT, "Oh, make sure not to do this wrong," it didn't do it wrong, and it wrote the code perfectly like how anyone else would. And then that's another thing with the job environment. Well, if you're going to have an AI that can now write code, do you need coders anymore?
This
Like,
is the question.
yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of
Mhm.
questions going around, and I think only time will tell what we can see.
Only time will tell how this AI thing is gonna turn out. I definitely don't think it's gonna blow over, like most things in the past, most electronic devices in the past. So it's gonna definitely be interesting to see how it evolves in the next couple of years, the way people use it on their daily lives, and just to see progress overall.
You know they're going to be banned at the high school level.
It is.
No, I'm saying, do you think it?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, no,
I thought
yeah,
you told me
yeah.
that. I was like,
Yeah,
wait, no.
no. That answers that.
I have an essay
Yeah.
due.
Do you think it'll be banned at the high school level or middle school or?
Maybe middle school, elementary school
Yeah.
might be something different, because I think the school, like the school system tends to, like at a middle school, they will just ban something. But I feel like at high school, even right now, I couldn't tell you write something right now off my top of my head that's been banned right now. I mean, like middle school, like I think that's another thing. Like phones, for example, middle school phones, like obviously no using, like you're not supposed to use phones in class right now in high school,
Yeah.
but it's not something that's like really enforced, because not all teachers care. Some